Hey guys, alright?
Welcome everyone.
In a future that is not impossible to happen in what is left of the Earth after a catastrophic nuclear war, we see a man named Max, who says he is haunted by the people he failed to protect and is constantly hunted by road looters.
After a break, he soon has to flee again, and it isn't long before he is captured. He is then taken to a place where his hair and beard are cut. They also tattoo him with information about his blood type and where he was found. At one point, however, he fights back and tries to flee the scene, but the men who captured him follow him. Max is again haunted in his mind because he says he failed to protect and almost gets caught. He keeps running and comes to the edge of a big drop. So, to try to escape, he jumps and hangs from a hook in a gymnast.
But unfortunately it does no good, and soon he is caught again. That place is known as the Citadel, controlled and commanded by a prevalent elderly man named Mutant Joe, the progenitor of all those other pale-skinned men, otherwise known as the Sons of War.
Thousands of other people live there, all sick and fainting due to the lack of water, and Mutant Joe is the one who has control of this precious liquid, and everyone worships him for it. Where from time to time he releases the water gates of the great reservoir he has for the people. However, only for a few seconds, and then closes them again.
On that day, some of his war sons are getting ready to go to another place known as Villa Gasolina, where they will get more fuel and weapons.
And for such a mission, leading the convoy, he sent his already well-known Empress Furiosa, in which he had already had this mission several times. Meanwhile, Max is tied up inside a cage.
When then one of the men from that place, who is like their doctor, says that there is a war boy losing blood and takes Max to donate to him, because he is a universal donor. Outside, the convoy heads to the mission. However, in the middle of the way, Furiosa seems to plan something and soon deviates from the path. The whole convoy also soon changes direction, and the leader of the war boys will question the reason for the change of course. But Furiosa just says go east now.
So the leader, afraid to ask too much, just passes new direction to the others. It doesn't take long, and soon one of Mutant Joe's sons sees that Furiosa is going somewhere else, and all without his knowledge. He is furious to see this and runs to another place where something is kept inside a safe.
Arriving there, he sees that what he keeps so safe was no longer there, which are his young women, the ones who help him to generate children, called paraderas. Mutant Joe soon orders a war convoy to go after Furiosa, who took his most precious possession. At that moment, sitting and receiving blood from Max, is Nux, one of Mutant Joe's war sons, who, seeing all that movement, asks what was going on, and soon knowing what it was about, he says he will also go on the hunt.
Already on the road, we see all their apparatus, where in addition to war drums, an oppressive guitar that releases flames goes ahead to cheer up the convoy. Max, in the middle of all this, is being taken in front of one of the cars with a blood bag and is furious with this situation.
And so everyone goes after Furiosa to retrieve the women of Mutant Joe.
Furiosa now, in addition to being hunted by him, to make matters worse, they are seen by another type of road marauders called puntudos, who go all out on Furiosa and her convoy.
The children of Mutant Joe who are with her, still unaware of Furiosa's plans, receive orders from her to attack and get rid of the spikes. But further ahead, a trap. And Furiosa almost falls into it with her truck, in which she was fast enough and dodged just in time to see the car in front fall into a hole full of sharp iron. The attacks against Furiosa and her convoy continue, but they get rid of the spikes one by one. When suddenly a truck all equipped with weird paraphernalia appears and approaches. At the same time, the Mutant Joe and his war boys also approach. Nux in his car is closer and goes to finish off the spikes first.
In the midst of it all, Max goes like a scarecrow tied to the front of the car.
The paraphernalia truck approaches alongside Furiosa to attack her with a large saw. The attack happens, but the war boys use their weapons against the truck.
And in that, Max almost loses his mind, but finally they manage to destroy that deadly paraphernalia. Another challenge, however, soon arises.
A huge sandstorm, complete with lightning and everything, is heading their way. The leader of the war boys in Furiosa's convoy still doesn't know what's going on and asks if she's not coming back.
That's when Nux with his shotgun orders him to get out of the way to shoot Furiosa, who soon hits the warboy, throwing the truck onto Nux's car, leaving him with a torn tire and staying behind. Nux asks his helper to put Max in the back to use him as a counterweight so he can keep going even with the bad tire. He does this, but soon Max manages to get rid of him and tries to catch Nux, who locks himself inside the car. When then all enter the storm, some are caught by tornadoes and torn to shreds in them.
Nux tries to get closer to Furiosa and has a plan to use himself as a car bomb to stop her.
For these warboys are worth dying for whatever cause Immortan Joe has, for they have him as a god.
Max, realizing the madman's madness, tries desperately to grab him to stop him. So as soon as he manages to light a flare to put the spilled fuel inside, Max is very lucky the roof cover goes flying and he manages to grab Nux's hand and stop him.
But Furiosa, who was right behind, is unforgiving and throws the truck at them, tearing the car to pieces as they go flying and crashing through the desert sand. After the storm passes, Max wakes up and is fine. Soon he tries to get rid of the chain that held Nux, but fails in his attempts. Then, seeing that Immortan Joe with his Sons of War was coming in the distance, he decides to leave immediately, taking Nux with him on his back. After walking a bit, by chance, he finds Furiosa's truck.
Soon he sees her with the women who fled from Immortan Joe cooling off with water from a hose. So with the gun pointed at them, he signals that he wants the hose, and after drinking a little, he wants another one to come with a rebar cutter to remove the chains from him.
All this while Immortan Joe still comes in the distance with his army of sons. The woman tries to cut the chain and failing, Max is distracted for a moment and is attacked by Furiosa.
She manages to take the gun from him, but sees that it didn't work.
Then a melee ensues and the women help Furiosa.
In this, being dragged here and there, Nux wakes up and seeing Furiosa tries to catch her when she would get a gun. Max pulls them both to get her gun, but Furiosa soon follows and manages to take it from him, firing a shot that almost hits him in the face.
The women try to help, pulling Nux, who had caught the clip of bullets that fell.
Then, after a certain fight, Furiosa is finally replaced by Max. At that moment, then, everyone realizes that Immortan Joe is getting closer.
Max then hurries and gets into the truck, leaving everyone behind.
However, he only walks a few meters and soon the truck stops, due to a security lock determined by Furiosa, who, expecting that to happen, soon approaches him and tells Max that if he wants to go somewhere, he will only be able to take him with him. Them together.
Max then, with no choice, accepts and goes on his way to not get caught. As they walk, Max takes out several weapons hidden there in the cabin so as not to be taken by surprise by Furiosa.
At that moment, Nux wakes up and seeing that they weren't too far away and hadn't picked up the speed yet, runs and catches up with them, climbs into the truck without being noticed.
Further ahead, they see that another town, the one from Villa Gasolina where Furiosa should have gone initially, is also going after them. When a certain moment, the truck starts to shake as if it was dragging something.
Max then goes down to see what it was, but takes Furiosa's bag full of weapons. Arriving there, he sees that the wheels of the last wagon were stuck due to a cable that was disconnected, in which we soon realize that it was Nux to cause a distraction. He then manages to enter the cabin and attacks Furiosa, but the other women hold him back and prevent Furiosa from eliminating him, as they knew he was just a war boy at the end of his half-life, being deceived by Immortan Joe.
They tie him up and try to talk him out of it, but seeing that he wouldn't, they throw him out of the truck onto the road. And he soon getting up, runs towards the train of Immortan.
After crossing the desert, Furiosa says that she had an agreement with the people further ahead to have safe passage there, but she doesn't know if it was still valid.
She tells everyone to hide and gives instructions to Max in case something goes wrong and they need to flee.
Arriving at the marked location, Furiosa waits for someone to show up.
The deal was for her to hand over 3,000 liters of gas in exchange for them blocking the passage so that no one from Immortan Joe can get behind them. However, the leader of the motorcycle people says that the arrangement was that only a few cars would chase her, and not 3 entire war convoys.
Realizing that there was no more deal, Furiosa gives the signal for Max to drive away and throws herself behind the truck.
Then she climbs back into it from below, while, with no choice, the bike people detonate the explosives to stop Immortan Joe and his convoy, or else they too would be killed.
Furiosa continues to run away, but the bikers want their fuel. Then the chase takes place. In the part obstructed by the rocks, Immortan Joe tries to pass quickly with his monster truck while the others stay to remove the rocks or find another way. Along with them is Inox, who was found along the way and says he knows about the women being taken by Furiosa, who is being attacked by the bikers at the moment. They manage to put out the flames and start attacking back, managing to take down one by one. When then, after causing an explosion in the last wagon that ends up detaching itself from the truck, Immortan Joe approaches them and points the gun at Furiosa. However, just in time, one of the women who ran away from him, called Esplendida, who is his favorite and was pregnant with another child from him, puts herself in front of him and he stops at the time, demanding that she return, because the child was his. At that moment, Furiosa shoots him, but one of his war boys puts himself right in front, saving him. Nux tries his moment of glory, offering to get into the truck, as he knew how to do it without being seen and would kill Furiosa. Immortan Joe then gives him a weapon and promises him various things if he gets it. But when climbing on the truck, he fumbles and almost falls off him. Immortan, seeing this, immediately calls it mediocre and goes to try to do something himself, putting himself right in front of Furiosa's truck. They nearly manage to rip the steering wheel off the truck, but Splendid manages to cut the chain. But now without the steering wheel they are going over some rocks, but with a wrench, Furiosa with Max manages to narrowly avoid it and Splendid is almost dragged. She tries to get back into the truck, when suddenly the door she was holding onto comes off and she falls on the road, and is then run over by Immortan Joe's truck, who, seeing her already on top, tries to deviate and ends up overturning her vehicle. In the process, inside the truck, the other women screamed desperately for their partner, but there was nothing else to do. On the road, Immortan Joe screams furiously with the body of his favorite in his arms, ordering everyone to go after Furiosa. After walking around for a while, Max asks Furiosa where this place they wanted to get to is located, called Vale Verde. She replies that there is still one night's journey to the east. Already at night, they arrive at a stretch full of mud and have problems with the quagmire. After they manage to get unstuck, Max starts placing bombs in the way to catch the convoy of Immortan Joe that was behind him just a few minutes ago. After exploding some and Immortan Joe stops because of it, the head of the village, called Fazenda da Bullet, goes straight ahead with his vehicle well adapted for that terrain, while Max and the girls are suffering with the truck's quagmire. The bullet farmer approaches while firing several shots to see if he can hit one of Furiosa's trucks. They manage to get the truck out of the quagmire a little and discover that Nux was still there, but now he was willing to help them. Nux takes a rifle to hit the farmer, but having only 3 shots and already missing 2, Furiosa takes it and after aiming well, it hits the car's reflector, leaving the farmer blind. Nux then has the idea of using a winch on a tree ahead to throw the truck out of the mud, but soon the crazy farmer blindfolds his eyes and starts shooting forward, almost hitting Max and the women who protect themselves as best they can.
After they manage to free the truck and place it in a dry area, the engine's radiator is faulty and overheats, so they have to wait a while for it to cool down so they can continue.
Max then decides to do something to stop the car that is close to reaching them and follows with a can of gasoline in his hand, saying that if he takes too long to come back, they can go on without him. Furious, Nux and the girls are moving slowly forward, always having to stop for a while to cool the engine as they can, when then suddenly an explosion occurs. A few moments later, Max comes back with some supplies of ammo and other useful things he managed to grab from the crazy bullet farmer.
So soon they continue following the path.
Already the next day, they stop and see a place in the distance.
And Furiosa imagines it to be the Verde Valley, which she says she was taken from there as a child.
Approaching the point they saw in the distance, a woman comes on top of an old tower screaming for help, but Max says that it was a trap. Furious, appearing to know something, she goes down telling everyone to stay there while she goes towards the woman who asked for help. Furiosa then identifies herself to the woman as one of them, in which she had been away from home for a long time, but had managed to return. Without delay, the woman in the tower gives a signal and several dead men approach, revealing themselves to be several other women, but already older.
They all go to meet Furiosa, recognizing her as one of them, remembering her mother.
Furiosa then introduces everyone who came with her and says she's looking forward to showing them around. But the women say that they don't have a house anymore and that they had already passed what was left of it, saying that it was that swampy place where they got stuck. They explain that the water there was poisoned and they had to leave, and now they are the only ones left. Furious with this news, then she becomes desolate and screams in frustration mixed with sadness at knowing that her place no longer exists. That night, Furiosa tells Max that she has a plan to unite with the women she brought and the others they found there so that the next day they can move on as far as they can, hoping to find somewhere they can live. She then offers him the chance to go with them in a motorcycle stocked with what he needs for the way, but Max refuses, saying he prefers to ride alone.
Already the next day, everyone then moves on to an unknown course.
Seeing them in the distance, Max is thoughtful and decides to do something to help everyone and has an idea. He then follows Furiosa and the others, stopping them to talk about his plan, which is actually to go back to the Citadel where they came from, as that is the only place where there is any life.
Because you know that going forward you will only find dead places without life for thousands of kilometers.
The idea is to take advantage of the fact that the Citadel is practically unprotected, go through the gorge again with a truck and then blow it up to block the passage behind them again so that Immortan Joe cannot follow them. A little afraid of this idea, but seeing that this is the only viable thing to do, furious with everyone else decides to take a chance and soon puts a plan into practice. Meanwhile, Immortan Joe is stopped somewhere along the way, having lost track of Furiosa and the others. When suddenly they come in the distance, per truck coming back. And soon, Immortan Joe understands what Furiosa wants to do, so they rush to follow them. Being at a good distance, Max and the others believe that their plan can work, but the chase begins and it doesn't take long. Soon Furiosa and the others are caught up. The first approaches, but is soon taken out of combat. Furiosa's truck, however, has one of the engines very forced and soon loses speed, being easily reached. Max then asks Nux to do some repairs while he goes to try to get rid of his pursuers. Two women who were on a motorcycle manage to stop one of the approaching cars, but they are soon knocked down and, not having a chance, they are killed. The cars get closer and manage to attach hooks to the truck to stop it. Max then tries to cut the chains, however, as he cuts, more are released. Just then, a truck pulls up alongside and hits the cabin where Furiosa and the other women are. But soon the driver is hit and the car turns over, however taking Furiosa's cabin door. Max back there finally manages to break the last chain, and with that the car that was with her loses control and collides with some others. The chase continues and now men in big pendulums are invading from all sides. Max and the other women try hard to get rid of them, where at one point they barely succeed. One of the women is eventually caught and taken back to Immortan Joe's car. More and more henchmen go down to the truck and Max recovers from one of the attacks, where seeing that Furiosa was in danger, he runs to help her, but soon after he loses his balance and almost falls, being saved by Furiosa and the others. Women who grab him by the feet. When the henchman then sneaks into the cabin and manages to wound Furiosa with a dagger, Nux at that moment finally manages to repair the engine and gains more power to run faster, where at that moment they were already being surrounded by several cars of Immortan Joe.
Nux, seeing Max about to fall, gives him a little help and makes him fall on top of the car of the owner of the gasoline village. Max then throws the driver out and takes the truck, then using the boss there as a shield to protect himself from Immortan Joe's shots. When the truck suddenly starts exploding backwards, Max tries to run away. But as soon as he leaves, he is caught by one of the pendulum guys, as the truck completely explodes behind them. Everyone is already getting close to the biker's pass, when then Immortan Joe puts himself in front of Furiosa to stop her. But she asks Nugs to take the wheel while she goes to try to get Immortan Joe out of the way. Max managed to get out of the pendulum he was on and attacks the crazy guitarist while everyone runs frantically. Max manages to jump back into Furiosa's truck, while the crazy guitarist won't stop playing for nothing. Furious then manages to damage Immortan Joe's car a little, but soon his son, Big Guy, comes out to get her. Then, seeing that she was in danger, one of the women asked him to hold her, pretending that she wanted to return. Big Man then tries to get the others, but at that moment Max appears to fight him,
while Furiosa climbs into Immortan's car with the help of the woman who asked him to come back. Max fights Big Guy while Furiosa tries to attack Immortan Joe, but has to fight others first. Nux, seeing the situation, gives strength, where Max manages to overthrow the Big Guy while Furiosa manages to reach Immortan Joe and rip off his mask with a chain attaching to the tire, thus finally killing him and managing to take his car. All women then move to his now car. Once the last one makes it through, the Big Guy who is just passed out gets up to get them.
But Nux, seeing this, suddenly brakes the truck and stops him.
The furious big man then starts the truck's engine and Nux, seeing no other alternative, sacrifices himself to help the others escape, making the truck overturn and all the others behind it too, thus blocking the passage for the others. Already inside the car, Furiosa is not well due to the wound he took and having lost a lot of blood. So Max, as a universal donor and having infinite blood, gives her a quick transfusion in hopes of saving her. After a while, they finally manage to get back to the Citadel, and there they show everyone the body of Immortan Joe, and with that the crowd acclaims Furiosa that he was already much better. The movie then ends with him riding the elevator as Max walks away into the crowd, looking and kind of saying goodbye to Furiosa, who will now run the whole place.